You know that saying, justice delayed is justice denied? Well, today we're flipping that around a bit, looking at the unsettling possibility of justice being, well, weaponized.
Ooh, okay, yeah. I like where this is going. That definitely raises some eyebrows.
It does, right. And this isn't some theoretical debate. We're talking about real concerns being raised about divorce and domestic violence laws in India, specifically how they might be impacting men.
A really sensitive area, and the conversation can get pretty heated. It's vital to remember that acknowledging one side's difficulties doesn't erase or diminish the very real struggles of the other side.
100%. And to be crystal clear, we're not here to minimize the challenges women face, not at all. That's a vital conversation that needs to continue. But we're looking at this other side of the coin that's emerging from the news reports, personal accounts, and legal perspectives we dug into. Some pretty heartbreaking stuff, honestly.
Yeah, we're going deep on this one.
Hmm.
Really trying to get past the surface and grapple with the arguments about potential misuse of the legal system.
Yeah.
What are the core worries, the potential blind spots in family law that maybe aren't getting enough attention? That's what we're trying to unpack.
And we're starting with some individual cases that are just, well, they're tough to read about. There's this recent case in Hyderabad, a 35-year-old man who died by suicide. His family is adamant that harassment by his ex-wife played a huge role. The police are investigating, but those things can drag on. A family is left reeling, and the questions just linger.
It's that agonizing weight, that uncertainty that can really chip away at someone.
Yeah,
Tragically, it seems to be part of a bigger pattern.
it does, doesn't it? And then there's this case in Kolkata that's just, it's almost unbelievable. A man was married for just 3 months. 3 months. And he's been battling it out in court for 7 years.
7 years. 7 years. Well, that's longer than some serious relationships.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, there are allegations of manipulation from the very beginning, like a claim of a false pregnancy to pressure him into the marriage. Then it quickly falls apart. Bam. Domestic violence case, maintenance claims, the whole 9 yards.
So you're talking about a legal battle that's way out of proportion to the actual length of the relationship. That's alarming.
Exactly. It's like the legal process itself becomes almost like a punishment in itself.
It definitely raises questions about fairness and proportionality within the system.
Big time. And get this, it gets even worse. He apparently resisted some of these demands, ended up in judicial custody, and then, and this is where it gets truly wild, there are reports of him being attacked, physically attacked by lawyers right there in the courtroom.
No way. In the courtroom. Seriously.
That's what's being alleged. And it doesn't stop there. His father, who was there supporting him, was also reportedly assaulted. This guy released a statement afterward saying his faith in humanity and the judicial system had been completely shaken. I mean, can you blame him?
That feeling of being let down by the very system that's supposed to uphold justice, that's got to be devastating.
Absolutely. And it makes you think, if this can happen to him, what about others who might not have the resources or support to fight back? Then there's this other case from Kolkata. Abhijit Paul, 51 years old, unemployed, wife had left him. He died by suicide.
Oh, man.
That's awful.
Well, the police report mentions his mental state, which of course is important to consider, but you have to wonder, right, about the pressure of potential legal battles, the financial strain. Was that part of what pushed him over the edge?
Right, because those factors can be huge.
Right.
Even the fear of those things looming can be a massive weight on someone already struggling.
Exactly. And it's at this point that you often hear that, but what about the women argument?
Yeah, that's always a tough one. It's a valid concern, no doubt.
Absolutely valid. We are not for a second, denying the very real struggles women face in these situations. But, and this is crucial, recognizing that men can also be caught up in these legal battles doesn't erase or diminish the problems women experience. Right. It's not an either situation. It's about acknowledging the complexities, the nuances, the fact that suffering can exist on multiple sides of an issue.
Exactly. And it's not limited to personal relationships either. We're seeing this play out in professional spheres too. You had Manav Sharma, a software engineer who took his own life, reportedly leaving a note blaming his wife. And then there's Atul Subhash, another tech guy in Bangalore, facing immense financial and legal pressure from his ex-wife.
Jeez. It's a reminder that this isn't just a family issue. It can ripple out and impact people's careers, their livelihoods, their entire support systems.
And then there's this case of a retired Indian Army officer falsely accused of rape. Imagine that. Someone who served their country facing such a serious charge. He had to fight all the way to the Supreme Court, which finally dismissed the charges as a misuse of the legal process.
Okay, so even someone with that kind of background, with presumably some level of resources and understanding of the system, had to go through that ordeal.
It makes you think, if he had to fight that hard, what about people who don't have those advantages?
Right, if he almost got caught in the gears, what hope is there for others who are less equipped to navigate the legal system? It's a chilling thought.
It is, and then there's the financial burden, which can be absolutely crushing.
Yeah, that side of it doesn't get talked about enough.
The guy in Kolkata we mentioned earlier, the one who left his banking job to pursue filmmaking, well, he talks about how the legal costs, the maintenance demands, it's completely drained him. His dreams are on hold, he says, because of the legal system.
It's heartbreaking. It's like a double whammy. You're dealing with the emotional fallout of the relationship breakdown,
Yeah.
and then you're hit with this huge financial burden that can feel impossible to overcome.
And this Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj, an advocate for men's rights, brings up a good point. The assumption that men should always pay maintenance no matter what their own situation is.
It's like this default setting. Man equals provider, regardless of the circumstances.
It's an interesting point, right? And it's not just coming from activists. Some legal professionals are also raising concerns.
Makes sense. They're the ones seeing this play out day in and day out.
This divorce lawyer, Runalini Deshmukh, really respected in her field, she says alimony needs to be based on clearer criteria like how long the marriage was, kids, actual earning capacity, all of that.
Yeah, make it less about assumptions and more about the reality of the situation.
She actually said sometimes alimony ends up feeling like a jackpot win, not actual financial support.
And that perception, that can poison the whole process.
Yeah.
It makes it harder to reach a fair and reasonable outcome.
Then there's the whole issue of dowry laws. They were put in place for a good reason, protecting women from harassment. But there's a growing worry that these laws can be misused, twisted around in divorce cases.
So something intended for protection might actually be creating new vulnerabilities. That's a tough one to swallow.
And here's a stat that really stopped me in my tracks. In 2022, get this, 83,713 married men in India died by suicide. That's nearly 3 times the number of married women.
That's a huge disparity. You can't just ignore a number like that. It screams that something needs to change.
Right, it demands attention, demands a deeper look at what's going on.
And a more nuanced conversation about the pressures within marriages and what happens when they fall apart. It's not just a women's issue.
Even a Supreme Court advocate, Ashwani Kumar Dubey, he's calling for a law to punish people who bring false cases to court. Equal penalties for false accusations.
Accountability, that's the key words, right?
Exactly. If you can be penalized for actually doing something wrong, shouldn't there be consequences for deliberately making false claims that can ruin someone's life?
Right, because those false claims can be just as damaging, if not more so, than some of the acts they're alleging.
And this all seems to be leading towards a push for gender-neutral laws in this area. The idea that fairness shouldn't depend on whether you're a man or a woman. Everyone deserves equal protection under the law.
Makes sense. Level the playing field.
Mrunalini Deshmukh, that lawyer we mentioned earlier, she said it really well. Justice should not be one-sided. Everyone deserves equal legal standing.
It's not about stripping away protections. It's about making sure those protections are there for everyone.
And that's the big takeaway here, isn't it? Recognizing that men can also experience real pain in these situations doesn't mean we're ignoring the struggles women face.
Right. It's not a zero-sum game.
Justice should be blind, right? Blind to gender, blind to any preconceived notions. It should be about fairness, period.
Well said. Selective justice isn't justice at all.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at the potential for misuse of divorce and domestic violence laws, the tragic cases of suicide, the crushing financial burdens, and the growing calls for reform and gender-neutral legislation.
It's a heavy topic, but it's one that needs to be discussed openly and honestly.
100%. What we've tried to do today is shine a light on this complex issue from the perspective of our source material, to encourage a more nuanced understanding of the challenges people face when relationships end and the potential for the legal system to become part of the problem.
Exactly. There are no easy answers, but we hope this has given you some things to think about.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with this question: how can we create a legal framework that's genuinely equitable and just for everyone involved in these incredibly difficult situations? It's a question worth pondering and one that we as a society need to grapple with.
And remember, there are always multiple sides to every story. Keep digging, keep asking questions, and keep those conversations going.
Well said. That's it for this deep dive, but like we always say, the conversation doesn't end here. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.